Most people think a Roth IRA is just another retirement account. But the real reason it matters is deeper than that. It is not just about having money when you are older. It is about slowly buying back control from a future where every bill, every job, and every unexpected problem gets to make decisions for you. And that is why a Roth IRA can feel boring on the surface but quietly powerful underneath. Because when you really understand what it is, how it works, and why something as simple as ETFs can belong inside it, you start to realize something most people miss. Wealth is not always built through dramatic moves. Sometimes it is built through one calm decision, repeated long enough that your future life starts to look completely different. By the end of this video, you should understand what a Roth IRA actually is, how people use it, why ETFs are so commonly talked about inside Roth IRAs, what the pros and cons are, and how this kind of account can potentially help someone build millionaire-level wealth over time. Not overnight, not magically, and not because someone on the internet promised you freedom in 6 months, but through time, consistency, tax advantages, investing behavior, and the emotional skill of not ruining a good plan too early. My name is John, and the way I like to explain money is simple, honest, and realistic, because money is already stressful enough. You do not need someone making it sound more complicated than it is. But you also do not need someone pretending it is easy. Because the truth is, a Roth IRA is simple mechanically, but emotionally, it can be hard. And that is where most people misunderstand it. They hear retirement account, and their brain checks out. Because retirement feels far away. It feels like a problem for an older version of yourself. And when your current life is expensive, stressful, and unpredictable, it can be hard to care about your future self. It is hard to think about age 65 when rent is due now. It is hard to think about compound interest when groceries keep getting more expensive. It is hard to care about tax-free growth when your car suddenly needs repairs and your paycheck already feels spoken for before it even hits your account. So when people avoid learning about Roth IRAs, I do not think it is because they are lazy. I think it is because the topic asks them to emotionally care about a future that feels too far away, while their present life is already demanding everything from them. And that matters. Because the mistake is thinking investing is only a math problem. It is not. Investing is also a patience problem, a behavior problem, a pressure problem, and a "can I keep making good decisions when I am tired?" And a Roth IRA sits right in the middle of that. So let's make it simple. A Roth IRA is an individual retirement account that you open for yourself. It is not tied to your employer. It is not the same thing as a 401k, although both can be used for retirement. The big idea is this. With a Roth IRA, you contribute money that has already been taxed, and then, if the rules are followed, the money can grow and eventually be withdrawn tax-free in retirement. That is the trade. You do not usually get the tax break today, but you may get a powerful tax benefit later. And this is where the psychological part starts to matter, because most people are trained to think about money in terms of what helps right now, what lowers the bill right now, what gives relief right now, what makes this month easier. And that makes sense. But a Roth IRA is built around a different question. What decision today could make future life less trapped? That is a very different way to think. And it is why this account can feel so powerful for younger investors, or really anyone who believes their future tax situation could be higher than their current one. You are choosing to pay taxes now, then potentially letting the growth happen inside a tax advantage container. That container matters because investments do not just grow in a straight line. They rise. They fall. They have good years. They have ugly years. Sometimes the market makes you feel smart. Sometimes it makes you feel like you made a terrible decision. But over long periods of time, diversified investing has historically rewarded patience. Not every year, not every decade equally. But over time, patient investors have often been paid for staying in the game. And this is where ETFs come in. An ETF, or exchange-traded fund, is basically a basket of investments that trades like a stock. Instead of buying one company, you can buy a fund that holds many companies. Some ETFs track the broad U.S. stock market. Some track the S&P 500. Some track technology, healthcare, energy, bonds, international markets, or dividend stocks. But for a lot of long-term Roth IRA investors, the appeal is simple. ETFs can make diversification easier. Instead of trying to guess which individual company will win for the next 30 or 40 years, you can own a broad basket and let the market do more of the heavy lifting. And this is the part nobody really explains clearly enough. The Roth IRA is not the investment itself. The Roth IRA is the account. The ETF is something you can hold inside the account. That distinction matters. Because someone might say, I opened a Roth IRA, and think they are done. But opening the account is only step one. If the money just sits there in cash, it may not be doing what they think it is doing. The Roth IRA is like a special container. But you still have to choose what goes inside the container. For many people, that might be ETFs, mutual funds, or other investments. And that is where the long-term growth potential comes from. Now, can a Roth IRA make you a millionaire? Potentially, yes. But that sentence needs to be handled carefully. Because there is a responsible way to say it, and there is a misleading way to say it. The misleading way is to act like opening a Roth IRA automatically makes someone rich. It does not. The responsible way is to say that if someone contributes consistently, invests wisely, gives the account enough time, avoids unnecessary withdrawals, and earns reasonable long-term market returns, the math can become surprisingly powerful. For example, the IRS says that for 2026, total contributions to traditional and Roth IRAs are limited to $7,500 for people under age 50, or $8,600 for people age 50 or older. Though these limits can change over time and eligibility depends on income and other rules. Now imagine someone contributes around the annual limit for decades, not for 3 months, not only when they feel motivated, for decades. If that money is invested in compounds at a reasonable long-term rate, it can potentially grow into a very large amount. That does not require being a genius. It requires time. And that is both encouraging and frustrating. Encouraging, because it means wealth building may be more accessible than people think. Frustrating, because the thing that makes it work is the thing most people struggle to give it: time. And that is the emotional challenge. Because the younger version of you has to sacrifice some spending power today for a future version of you who cannot say thank you yet. That is hard. It is hard to put money away when your friends are spending. It is hard to keep investing when the market drops. It is hard to stay consistent when you feel behind. It is hard to care about tax-free growth when you just worked a long shift and your brain is tired. So the Roth IRA is not just testing your knowledge, it is testing your relationship with patience. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think the hard part is understanding what a Roth IRA is. But that is not really the hard part. The hard part is using it correctly for long enough. Because at some point, you will be tempted. You will see money sitting there. You will think about a car repair, a vacation, a credit card balance, a rough month, a new phone, a business idea, or a market crash. And suddenly the Roth IRA stops feeling like a future freedom account and starts feeling like a backup checking account. Now, one of the unique things about a Roth IRA is that contributions are generally more flexible than many people realize. Because you already paid taxes on the money you contributed, Roth IRA contributions can generally be withdrawn without tax or penalty, while earnings have stricter rules. Qualified withdrawals of earnings generally depend on rules like the 5-year requirement and age 59 and a half, with some exceptions, and the details should always be verified because tax rules can change. That flexibility can make the account feel less scary. And psychologically, that matters. Because some people avoid investing because they feel like once money goes in, it disappears forever. A Roth IRA is not exactly like that. But here is the danger. Just because you may be able to access contributions does not mean you should casually pull from them. Because every dollar you remove is not just a dollar. It is a dollar that no longer gets to compound. It is a dollar that no longer gets decades of future growth. It is a dollar that could have been working quietly in the background while you lived your life. And that is the strange thing about compounding. In the beginning, it looks unimpressive. You contribute money, and it barely seems to move. You invest for a year, and the balance still feels small. You watch the market go up and down, and it can feel like nothing meaningful is happening. But compounding is not impressive at the start. It is impressive near the end. It is like planting a tree and being disappointed that there is no shade after the first week. The shade comes later, but only if the tree is still there. That is why ETFs inside a Roth IRA can be such a clean strategy for a lot of beginners. Not because ETFs are perfect, not because they remove risk, not because they guarantee anything, but because they can simplify the process. Instead of constantly asking, what stock should I buy? What is the next big thing? Am I too late? What if this company fails? A broad ETF can shift the question. It can become, can I keep buying a diversified basket over time and let patience do its job? That question is calmer. And in investing, calm is underrated. Because the biggest threat to many investors is not that they picked a slightly imperfect fund. It is that they panic. They stop. They jump around. They chase what already went up. They sell when fear is highest. They compare themselves to strangers. They turn investing into a test of self-worth. And once that happens, the account becomes emotional chaos. A Roth IRA works best when it is boring. And that is hard in a world that rewards excitement. Nobody wants to hear, contribute consistently, buy diversified investments, wait patiently, and let time work. That does not sound exciting. It does not feel urgent. It does not give you the dopamine hit of trying to double your money fast. But the boring path is often the one that people can actually survive emotionally. And survival matters. Because a plan that sounds amazing but you cannot stick to is not really a plan. It is a fantasy with a spreadsheet. Now let's talk about the pros. The biggest pro is the potential for tax-free qualified growth. That means, if the rules are followed, the growth in the account can eventually come out tax-free. That is a serious advantage, because if you invest for decades and the account grows significantly, the tax treatment on the back end can matter a lot. Another pro is control. A Roth IRA is individual. You can open one yourself through a brokerage. You are not waiting on an employer to offer it. That can make it feel empowering, especially if you are young, changing jobs, self-employed, working hourly, or just trying to build something outside your workplace. Another pro is simplicity. A Roth IRA does not have to be complicated. You can use it with a simple long-term investment approach. You can automate contributions. You can choose diversified funds. You can make it boring on purpose. And sometimes, boring is exactly what makes it work. Another pro is flexibility with contributions. Knowing that your original contributions are more accessible than many people realize can make the account feel less intimidating. Again, that does not mean you should casually withdraw them. But psychologically, it helps to know the account is not always as locked away as people assume. And another pro is that Roth IRAs do not have required minimum distributions for the original owner under current rules, which can give more flexibility around when retirement money is used compared with many traditional retirement accounts. But we also have to talk about the cons, because a Roth IRA is not perfect. The first con is that there is no upfront tax deduction for Roth contributions the way there may be with certain traditional IRA contributions. You are giving up the potential tax break today for the possibility of tax-free qualified withdrawals later. That can be worth it for some people, but it is still a trade-off. The second con is contribution limits. You cannot just put unlimited money into a Roth IRA every year. There are annual limits, and those limits change over time. So even though the account is powerful, it has a cap on how much you can directly contribute. The third con is income limits. If your income gets too high, your ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA may be reduced or eliminated, depending on your tax filing status and current rules. For 2026, the IRS announced Roth IRA phase-out ranges based on modified adjusted gross income, and those numbers should be checked each year because they can change. The fourth con is market risk. This is huge. A Roth IRA does not protect your investments from losses. If you buy ETFs or stocks inside a Roth IRA, those investments can still go down. Sometimes sharply, sometimes for longer than you expected. The account gives tax advantages. It does not remove volatility. And this is where people need to be emotionally honest. If you invest in growth assets, you have to expect discomfort. You have to expect years where your balance falls even though you did nothing wrong. You have to expect headlines that make you question your plan. You have to expect the market to test your patience. And the fifth con is emotional. This may be the biggest one. A Roth IRA rewards patience. And patience is hard when life is expensive. It is hard to care about your 65-year-old self when your current self is exhausted, underpaid, and trying to keep up. That is why the turning point is not just understanding the account. The turning point is realizing that investing is not about becoming some perfect finance person. It is about quietly buying back future peace. A Roth IRA is not just a number on a screen. It can become a future version of you having options. Maybe the option to retire with less fear. Maybe the option to work because you want to, not because every bill is chasing you. Maybe the option to help family without destroying your own stability. Maybe the option to wake up one day and realize that past you was looking out for present you. That is the emotional side of investing that does not always show up in calculators. Because calculators can show you the ending number. But they cannot fully show you what that number feels like. They cannot show you what it feels like to have breathing room. They cannot show you what it feels like to not panic when something breaks. They cannot show you what it feels like to have choices. And choices are really what money buys. Not happiness directly. Not a perfect life. Not freedom from every problem. But choices. A little more control. A little more space. A little less fear. That is why this matters. So how does someone actually use a Roth IRA in real life? First, they learn the rules before they rush. Not every person qualifies the same way. Contribution limits, income limits, deadlines, and withdrawal rules can change. So before acting, it is smart to verify the current rules through official sources or a qualified professional. Second, they make sure the Roth IRA fits into their bigger financial life. Because investing while ignoring high-interest debt, having no emergency fund, or constantly overdrafting can create stress. A Roth IRA is powerful, but it is not a magic shield against bad cash flow. Sometimes the first step is not maxing out the account. Sometimes the first step is building stability, having some emergency savings, reducing financial chaos, creating enough breathing room that investing does not feel like self-punishment. Third, they choose investments intentionally. For many beginners, broad ETFs are attractive because they offer diversification, simplicity, and lower effort compared with picking individual stocks. But the exact ETF or allocation depends on someone's goals, risk tolerance, timeline, and personal situation. The point is not to copy someone blindly. The point is to understand what you own and why you own it. Fourth, they automate what they can. Because motivation is unreliable. You might feel disciplined today. Then next week you are tired. Then work gets stressful. Then life gets expensive. Then the market drops. Automation helps remove some of the emotion. Even small recurring contributions can build the habit. And the habit matters because the account is not built by one heroic moment. It is built by repeated decisions that almost feel too small to matter, until one day they do. Fifth, they avoid treating the Roth IRA like a normal savings account. Yes, there may be flexibility with contributions, but the real power is long-term compounding. The account is not just there to hold money. It is there to give money time, and time is the ingredient you cannot get back. Sixth, they stay humble. No investment is guaranteed, no account removes risk, no YouTube video knows your exact life. A Roth IRA can be a great tool, but it is still just one piece of a bigger financial picture. And that is actually reassuring, because you do not need to become perfect overnight. You do not need to understand every tax rule today. You do not need to pick the perfect ETF. You do not need to max it out immediately. You just need to begin understanding the system well enough that fear stops making all the decisions. That is progress. And progress is underrated. A lot of people avoid money because they think they are already behind. They think, I should have started earlier. And maybe that is true. Maybe earlier would have been better. But earlier is not available anymore. Now is. And the worst thing you can do is let regret steal even more time. Because the point of a Roth IRA is not to shame you for where you are. The point is to give your future self a chance to have more options, a chance to make decisions from stability instead of panic, a chance to let your money work in the background while you keep living your real life. That is what makes this account powerful. Not because it is flashy, not because it is complicated, not because it guarantees millionaire wealth, but because it aligns with one of the most important truths in personal finance. Small decisions, protected over long periods of time, can become life-changing. And that is also why ETFs can fit so well inside the story. Because they can take something intimidating, like investing, and make it more manageable. They can help turn the question from, how do I beat everyone, into, how do I participate consistently? And for most people, that second question is healthier. It is calmer. It is more sustainable. And it is more connected to real life. Because real life is not a spreadsheet. Real life is getting home tired after work. Real life is deciding whether to cook or grab food. Real life is a surprise car repair. Real life is helping family. Real life is feeling behind while still trying to make good choices. So the financial plan has to work inside that reality. Not some fantasy version of you who is always motivated, always rational, and never stressed. A good plan respects your humanity. And a Roth IRA, used well, can become one of those quiet systems in the background. You contribute. You invest. You give it time. You learn as you go. You adjust when life changes. And slowly, the account becomes more than an account. It becomes proof that you are not only living for today's pressure, you are also building for tomorrow's peace. That does not mean sacrificing your entire present. It does not mean never enjoying your money. It does not mean becoming obsessed with retirement while life passes you by. It means creating a balance where your current self and future self are finally on the same team. And that may be the most important mindset shift. A Roth IRA is not about punishing yourself today. It is about protecting yourself later. It is not about becoming rich just to look successful. It is about having enough stability that life does not feel like it owns you. And if ETFs are the simple engine inside the account, time is the fuel. Patience is the behavior. And consistency is the bridge. So when you hear people talk about Roth IRAs, try not to hear it as boring retirement jargon. Hear it as a question. What would it feel like if future, you had more room to breathe? What would it feel like if money was not always urgent? What would it feel like if past you had quietly built something that current you could stand on? That is the deeper reason this topic matters. Because at the end of the day, the Roth IRA is not really about becoming a millionaire just for the number. The number is not the soul of it. The soul of it is what the number can represent. Less fear, more choice, more time, more control, more dignity, a calmer future. And maybe that future starts with one simple decision. Not a perfect decision, not a dramatic decision, just a real one. Open the account if it fits your situation. Learn the rules. Choose investments carefully. Contribute what you realistically can. Let time work. And do not underestimate what boring consistency can become when it is protected for decades. If this video helped you see Roth IRAs differently, you can like the video so more people can find it. And if you want more calm, honest conversations about money, investing, and building a life with more breathing room, you can subscribe. And in the comments, I'd be curious to hear this. When you think about a Roth IRA, what feels most confusing or stressful? The rules, the investing part, or the patience it takes to let it grow?